All right, welcome back to Structured Product Management Thinking. This channel is dedicated to product managers of any ability, any experience level to improve their skills and advance their careers. And my name is Kurt Van Etten. And in this module, we're going to be talking about customers and prospects, probably the most important module that we're going to go through in this course, and how we can get a better understanding of our customers and do our segmentation. So in this phase of the process, you're going to be working very closely with anyone who interacts with customers in your organization. This could be sales, this could be customer support, it can be customer success, professional services. If you're selling through a channel, engaging with the channel partners, these are all people that are on your list that you want to speak with, and then also you want to get data from. And so let's just jump in with our first mantra, which is start with the customer and work backwards, right? You want to start with understanding your customers and prospects. And in particular, what you want to understand is who are these customers? Are they in different segments? What are their problems? And how are they trying to solve them? And what outcomes are they expecting? And who do they hire to try to solve these problems? Maybe it's spreadsheets, maybe it's software, maybe it's services, maybe it's a combination of all of them. And this will lead you to developing hypotheses that you can go to and test in the discovery phase. So starting off, start with the customer, right? Anytime I've started a new position in product management, you start by getting out of the office and listening to customers. And this is really important. You want to attend sales calls. You don't need to have an agenda. You don't need to present anything. You just want to listen in and listen to the calls and maybe have a few questions about, hey, why did you purchase the software? Did this actually achieve the outcomes? What's preventing you from achieving those outcomes are good questions to ask, but you really don't want to go in and have a full deck ready and present a presentation to that. You're just trying to listen and understand it. The same with customer support calls. Most of the time, these are recorded in most organizations. There's lots of great software out there that you can search and search for certain keywords or certain tags, and you can just sit and listen to customer support calls and really understand what friction are the customers coming up with, and then who are these customers? Do certain customers ask different questions than other customers as well? And you want to listen to onboarding calls. If you have professional services or a team that gets the customer set up and onboarded, these are great calls to listen into. You can see what kind of questions they have. You can see where they're kind of getting confused in the process. All super, super important. So you really want to attend these meetings. You want to be an active listener in these meetings. Again, try to avoid presenting anything and limit your questions to the customer problems and active needs. And of course, the anti-pattern, again, is jumping into solutions too early, overreacting to some of the feedback, right? Just take note, listen, and try to break out how you're seeing these customer problems play out and who these customers are, because more than likely they're not all the same. In addition, we can look at some internal resources that you can use to understand the customers. From a sales perspective, you want to look at win-loss reports. If you're in B2B, this is a lot easier to do, but you can take a look and talk to sales guys and say, hey, when do we win? When do we lose? And again, to understand the customer, try to ask the question, like, okay, who are the customers that we're winning with and who are the customers that we're losing with? Right? This is really important to understand. It's very, very common organizations that they just refer to the customer as the customer, right? And this is a huge anti-pattern. You really want to understand, hey, these particular customers we do really well with, but these particulars we don't. And we'll talk about segmentation here in a second. You want to have the customer contact reasons, right? You should have a Pareto of the customer contact reasons. Why are the reasons customers calling in? That's probably representative of friction that they're having in the product. I had a case where I worked in an organization that we were able to reduce over 60% of the contacts just by understanding what the common contact reason was, working with the UX team, looking at the workflow and solving it and saving the organization a ton of money. You want to look at the request for enhancements. These sometimes are called feature requests or RFEs in certain organizations. These are requests that customers are asking for to improve the product. And again, you want to take a look at these and ask yourself, okay, certainly you want to prioritize them on the number of customers that are asking for these features, but again, who are asking these questions? who's asking for these certain features. Is a certain segment based on any number of methods that you're doing your segmentation in. Another best practice is working very closely with your sales team and understanding which things are what we call blocking factors. A blocking factor being defined as this particular customer support contact, bug, RFE is actually blocking a new deal from happening or blocking a renewal from happening. And this requires a lot of trust and relationship building with your sales organization to help them understand that, hey, you have limited capacity, but if we work closely together, we can really identify the most important things that can get a deal over the line. And you need to meet with them regularly to understand this. Another way that you can engage with customers is through customer advisory board or user groups. I will caution you that these groups tend to give you more positive feedback than negative because they feel part of the organization. They're probably existing customers, they're probably happy customers, that's why they join. And you want to be able to get time on these calendars and really think about, hey, how much time do I want to spend asking these high-level questions around, hey, what do you expect the product to do? Are you really getting the outcomes that you expect to achieve? And giving some time for people to review their products that they want to get feedback in that's in that execution phase as well. Best practice. It is extremely important that you should be having regular meetings with customer success, sales engineering, and reviewing this data and getting to more insight. You're going to have a lot of requests that come in that are very vague that don't give you a whole lot of insight. I've had many requests, for example, that said, hey, we need to have an integration with this company called Zscaler. And I would say, okay, what do they want? And they said, I don't know. That's just what they told me. Well, Zscaler is a company. It's not a product. And as a product manager, your job is to go in and understand, okay, what problem are they trying to solve with this integration? What's the use case? What's the expected outcome? And get into that level of detail to really get an understanding of your customer and your customer needs. Okay, so I've been harping on customer segmentation already quite a bit. There's many ways to do customer segmentation. It's extremely important. And again, it gets overlooked in a lot of organizations. There's many ways to do it. So there's demographic segmentation. We're just looking at age, gender, income, occupation, trying to get basic characteristics of the customer. Very common to be done in B2C markets. There's certainly geographic segmentation where I'm going to treat the Latin American market very different than Asia Pacific or the EMEA market. What's more interesting is when you get into psychographic segmentation, where now you're getting into people's lifestyles, their personalities, their values, their opinions, and behavioral segmentation, which is, hey, what are their purchasing habits, their usage rates, how do they feel about your brand and certain brands? This is all very important information. Very common in B2B is firmographic segmentation, doing segmentation by industry, right? You're going to segment by, hey, the finance vertical versus the healthcare vertical versus manufacturing. And then you may segment that, further by their company size or their annual revenue. There's technographic segmentation where you're looking at certain technologies that people use. What are their digital behaviors? Needs-based segmentation is just very specific to, you may have customers that look very similarly from a graphic perspective or a demographic information, but they just have very different needs, and you understand why that is and why they have those different needs. Value-based segmentation, very common in organization. Most organizations have some kind of top customer program or customers that have high revenue, very high customer lifetime value will get treated differently than maybe a customer that has just joined and signed on. So that's a lot of information. And so how do you do that and what's some of the best practices? One way is using a technique called cluster analysis. So what cluster analysis is doing is you can combine all these segmentations methods and try to create groups of customers. This is typically done through a large survey. So you may have to reach out to your market research team and really think about the questions you want to ask and what are the potential segments that you're looking for to do this. It's what you're going to do is survey a bunch of customers, look at that data, and then you're going to run a mathematical computation. This is done with statistical software, can also be done these days with generative AI tools, and create different clusters of segments. So in this example here that I'm showing, there may have been 100 questions on the survey, but the two major drivers of the segmentation were customer size on the x-axis and customer maturity on the y-axis. So large customers that were very mature were a group that's quite distant from everyone else, and they're on the top right. And customers are very small and had very low customer maturity. We're also separated quite a bit on the lower left, and then you want to think about those, about who you want to target and serve in these particular markets. So to make that a little more understanding, I'll give you a very specific example. When I was in business school taking market research course, we had a very large medical manufacturer came in, and they had just completed their segmentation analysis. And so they had done a very large survey with hundreds of physicians across the United States, and they had created these 4 segments, and I thought it was very interesting. So I'm paraphrasing their research, but there was a segment that was innovators. These were early adopters of new technologies. These physicians tended to be younger. They worked at larger, more cutting-edge hospitals and facilities, and so they were always very eager to learn about newer technologies were coming out. They had a segment that were second movers. So these physicians only wanted to offer their patients proven technology. So they were not going to buy something brand new that had just come out. They wanted to see broad adoption of the technology. They wanted to see the studies. And so they tended to be a little more risk adverse. And they likely were in regional hospitals more than the cutting edge hospitals. They had a segment that they called the traditionalists. These were physicians that were really slow to adopt new technology. They tended to be older, maybe a little more set in their ways. They tended to be more in private practice, and they had limited budgets. And so they were not going to adopt anything unless it was really proven and had been out in the market quite some time, and they had some familiarity with it. The 4th segment was really interesting. They said they had debated internally whether even to pull it out as a different segment, but they felt it was large enough that they should. They found a segment that was just people that just didn't plain out like to being doctors. And you can see you never would have gotten to this if they had just done geographic or firmographic data. They asked a lot of attitude questions, and they just found quite a bit of physicians that just weren't happy with their chosen profession. They just found that they had a lack of motivation and not a whole lot of intellectual curiosity about new technology. So this hopefully provides you a little more concrete example of what a segmentation looks like and how you can use cluster analysis to do it. And you can see that it impacts everything. It impacts the sales, the targeting, the marketing, and certainly the product management of what features they were going to develop and for who. I'd also like to give you one more real-world example of segmentation. This is actually from my personal experience. I joined a small company, and when I got there, they talked about the customer. We had a very standard demo for each customer. It was a very sophisticated product, highly technical product, and the demo would last maybe 50 to 55 minutes. And so I got out, started meeting with customers, getting on the plane, listening to calls, and what I quickly found out was we really didn't have one customer. We had a lot of different customers that had very different needs. So some of the users were using it for compliance. They needed to pull this data out to meet their compliance reports. And these people were not necessarily all that technical. We had more technical people that used the product for vulnerability management and would integrate it with some of their vulnerability management tools. We had customers that were using it for networking visibility, and we had network security people that were using it. All of these personas had very different jobs to be done and very different use cases. And the idea of doing an hour-long demo where maybe 10 or 15 minutes of that demo was relevant to that persona made a sales meeting very, very difficult. And so what we had to do was educate everyone on the different personas, what were their jobs to be done, what were the outcomes that we were looking for, and it really changed the way we went to market from a sales play perspective. That changed the way we did our marketing and the collateral, and then of course it changed the product roadmap, because then we had to pick which personas we wanted to target and develop solutions for them. So this is another real-world example of doing segmentation without really having to go through a lengthy cluster analysis process. So that's a quick overview of things that you can use to better understand your customer. I think at the end of this phase, you should really have a good idea of who your customers are. You should really have some strong hypothesis about, are there different segments in your market or not, and what they are, and understanding what are their outcomes that they're looking for, and how you can go out and go to the next phase when we get into discovery and try to prioritize those problems and outcomes and help drive your product strategy. If you have any comments, please comment below. All feedback is a gift, and look forward to seeing you in the next module.